Welcome back to Used to Sew, a podcast about sewing machines, sewing history, and sewing culture in the past and present. I am your producer and co-host Aradia, daughter of your main host, T.R. Kelly, who is here today to talk to you about the Singer Featherweight. Not a dead one this time. This time we are talking about the entire concept of a featherweight. This episode's purpose is to deep dive into the origins of the featherweight, their rise and fall over 30 plus years, and their current status as the centerpiece of a cult-like following. If you know nothing about sewing machines at all, you've probably still heard of or seen a Singer Featherweight. In the first part of the episode, TR will be reading to you sections of the Featherweight Bible, also known as The Perfect Portable and Its Stitches Across History by Nancy Johnson Strabo. There's a lot of interesting history there, from the way that Singer got the design ideas from the Standard Sewing Machine Company, to the ways in which the featherweight was popular during the Great Depression, to the new innovations that made it unpopular after World War II. Relatively unpopular. In the latter half of the episode, we will jump forward to the modern place of featherweights in the world of sewing machine enthusiasts. The stink of the old cases, the corroding aluminum, the aftermarket replacement bobbins, custom paint jobs, and so on. These really are machines that command a following, and because they mostly come from before the era of planned obsolescence, you too can join in the worship of these little machines, assuming you don't have one already. So, settle down at your layout table, get to piecing together your next quilt block, and let us tell you how a tiny machine came to command such a huge following.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Used to Sew. This is TR, someone with a lower, scratchier voice and more sewing machines. You couldn't tell that from where you're at, but yeah, I think I'm up to 15 or so now. I don't know. They're all scattered all over the county. I was just talking to my partner. I said, when am I getting my sewing room? We're over here on my new 30 acres in the desert, and I really want to set up all my treadles, dang it. So we're drawing house plans, and I'm like, how big's my room? How big is it? Well, the cabinets, I need this much room for this cabinet.
Excellent.
So, yeah, here I am over in the desert, surrounded. My room right now is 7 by 4 by 5, and I'm 5 feet tall, so I can stand up in here. And I still managed to cram 3 sewing machines and a bunch of fabric and all kinds of stuff. And I was rooting around through all that the other night, and I found a book that I knew I had, but I hadn't seen it for a while. And I'm sure that some of you out there might even have this book. It's called Featherweight 221, The Perfect Portable and Its Stitches Across History. This is the expanded 3rd edition by Nancy Johnson Strabo. This is the Featherweight Bible. When this first came out, our fabric store couldn't keep it in stock. Everybody wanted it. Okay, people are, wait, what's a featherweight? What's a 221? Why do I care? If you know nothing about sewing machines at all, you've probably still heard the word Singer, right? That's kind of the noun for sewing machine in a lot of the world. Oh, my grandma has
Kleenex.
Yeah, Levi's, Coke, Singer. And if you know anything more, maybe you're just an antique person. Maybe you've watched Antique Roadshow or whatever, but you've heard of the Singer Featherweight. If there's any Singer that non-sewers have heard of, it's probably the Featherweight. Well, what is it? It's a tiny little machine. A lot of people think it's a toy when they first see it. It's half the size of a full-size sewing machine. It comes in a little black suitcase thing with a tray of accessories and the foot control and the instruction manual, and everything just fits into this little case, and it's so adorable, right? So there's this plague of people that like cute things. They're going to love a featherweight even if they don't sew because it's cute. But other than being cute, it is the quilter's machine. Why? I don't know why. Probably because it's so light and cute and portable, you can take it to classes and sew with it and then pack it all up. And it's kind of got a little, the featherweight, if there's a cult of sewing machines, the featherweight is the queen. Why? Why is there a featherweight? Why did Singer make this thing? So we're going to turn to the book here. And Singer, as we have found out through many of our episodes, was really good at buying up other companies and taking their designs and capitalist plan of action is to eat all your competitors and steal their stuff and then sell it as your own, right? Well, okay, so here we go. In the beginning, this is chapter 2. We don't need chapter 1. It's just a bunch of acknowledgments and perspectives and blah, meow, etc.
Who needs all that? Get to the meat.
Yeah, let's get to what we're talking about here. We're talking about the featherweight. I'm going to read this because I'm just blathering, so reading will be better. By the late 1920s, remember, electricity. By the late 1920s, the words sewing machine meant Singer to most women. It was and is a standout company, well established. Competitors abounded, but Singer had the name, the products, and the marketing. This is where they were super outstanding, really. They didn't make the best sewing machines, but they marketed them better than anybody else. Despite women's liberation in the roaring 20s era, sewing machine demand was still steady. Basic sewing and mending were necessary in most every household. Treadle machines were on their way out, and the new electrics had hit the market. In today's age of microwave ovens, computers, and TVs, an electric motor may seem passé, but in the 1920s and 30s, when rural America was being electrified, the convenience of a small, simple motor was awesome. The early electric machines were mainly old sewing heads designed for treadle operation, but with the addition of a motor and a foot or knee speed controller. This was just slap an old motor and a light on the old 27 there. Innovations quickly appeared, and before long, the electric machines on the market had been engineered from the ground up. Remember, that's the 101. Among other things. The 101 was the one they engineered it. Hey, electricity right from the start. Weight wasn't a big factor because machine heads were more or less permanently installed in a cabinet in the home. Even the early portables were not much more than standard heads that came with a base, cover, and carrying handle. Like we've talked about, they were portable in that you could move them, but not that you could swing it on your hip and just, take it to quilt class. Honey,
Right.
can you move my sewing machine? So we're talking like a 201 in a dome case. We're talking about 50 pounds there. Enter the Standard Sewing Machine Company of Cleveland, Ohio, with the first truly portable machine named the Sew Handy. It's so cute. S-E-W Handy. Sew Handy. It only weighed 12 pounds. Ooh. And it was gear-driven throughout with a full rotary motion. It had many advanced features such as a built-in motor, sewing light, and fully enclosed lower drive. Now, looking at the picture of this little thing here, you can't see the belt. You can't see the motor. It's all underneath in the case part. Very cool. It was small and self-contained. The company's advertisement said it came in an attractive case of washable leatherette material that measures only 13 inches, the longest dimension. Mechanically, the Sew Handy was well balanced, which was not necessarily true for the old cast iron treadle heads. Remember the long shuttles and the oscillator?
Right.
Put a motor on one of those old mechanisms, it's going to vibrate like crazy. The Sew Handy could operate on a kitchen table or convenient shelf without walking around. Standard even advertised that your Sew Handy and a card table are all you need to do your sewing in a sunny room at any hour of the day.
And a card table. Now, that is quite the bold claim on their non-rocking. I mean, card tables will rock if you look at them wrong.
Exactly. And, trying to put a long electrified long shuttle on there, the legs would fall off.
Right?
Looking backwards from today, the machine, its carrying case, and the card table reference were nothing short of a prophecy. Little did Standard's marketing and engineering department know that they had brilliantly foreseen a product need that was coming up in the dark days ahead. And they had set the stage for the upcoming Featherweight Model 221, the perfect portable. So, the stock market crash of 1921 and the Great Depression that followed had an impact on most everything in American life. Tight money forced more women back to the sewing machine, and machines were finally offered with reverse sewing feature for darning and mending. Although that had been an early invention, it was not widely offered to the home sewing machine prior to that period of hard times. Apparently, the manufacturers did not think it would sell very well. Weird. The lack of work and economic depression caused families to move about, and the vignette of the old jalopy loaded with everything was repeated all too frequently all over the country. Store sales slowed down, and Singer even introduced a new marketing concept with a car, trailer, and sales team to bring the store out to the customers. So you didn't have to go to town. They're going to bring it out to you, make it easier.
Literally chasing your customers down at home.
Yeah. Sewing machines were demonstrated by powering them from banks of 6-volt batteries wired together. The tragic dust storms of 34 and 35 completed the ruin for untold numbers of farmers. Families started migrating to the West, California in particular. The need for a reliable, truly portable sewing machine had come to pass. All right. Well, it seems like the Standard Sewing Machine Company was a casualty of the Depression. Oh, no. And they sold out to a successor, the Osan Manufacturing Company. Osan reportedly manufactured So Handy for a period, but sold to Singer only 2 years later in 1931.
So they sold the design to Singer. Singer didn't acquire the company.
Let's see. So Osan sold their whole thing to Singer.
Okay, so Osan stopped existing then after that? Okay, all right.
So then there's a bunch of minutiae about the transitional models and how to tell them apart and the books and things that came with them. But then we'll get back to this part. All told, the So Handy was the immediate predecessor of the Featherweight, or at least strongly influenced its design. When you look at a picture of them next to each other, you can see there's some similarities, but they're not really the same machine at all, other than being very small. Singer's engineers kept the So Handy's desirable features and added significant improvements to the basic mechanism. And their production people took their usual special pains to build it right. This was the age of the craftsman. Officially named the Model 221, it made its debut at the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago.
Ooh.
And this is one of the most interesting paradoxes around the Featherweight. The midst of the Depression was an odd and risky time to introduce a new revolutionary model of anything. But there was a need, and Singer must have felt there was some money out there. Think about it. People were standing in food lines. Hundreds of men would compete for every job. The wheels of industry were barely creaking along. How much demand should there have been for a new sewing machine? Much less a model that looked like a toy compared to most every other machine in the showroom. But something very different was born, and it fit in perfectly. It should have flopped, but it didn't. Singer's Featherweight caught on, built its reputation, and the little marvel endured. Oh, the little machine that could.
That's so wild to me that it was debuted at a World's Fair. Like, the wildest stuff happens at World's Fairs. Like, every time they come up, every time I hear about one.
Oh, yeah.
At least in that period, there's always like the wildest, like the biggest gun ever manufactured, the largest single ingot of a metal ever produced, the Eiffel Tower, electricity. Like, it's just, World's Fairs are where wild stuff comes into the public consciousness. So for a Featherweight to be on that list, or for the Featherweight, I should say, to be on that list is just like, wow.
Yeah. A lot of sewing machines, the early World's Fairs, and they weren't like the Olympics, like we have with them every 4 years. They would just have them whenever a city decided, hey, we need a big promo thing. The whole thing of World Fairs between like 1880 and I think World War II was a big deal.
Yeah.
The Seattle World's Fair was the year I was born, 1962. They built the Space Needle and the monorail and all that space age stuff. So that used to be kind of the way for manufacturers to bring out their newest and coolest stuff. Kind of like, the red carpet runway for clothes, but this is for like inventions.
Right.
So the public can walk through this and see all this new stuff. Like the first World Fair that was lit up, I think 18 something. I know we talked about that in an earlier episode, but people came just to see all the electricity. Like, oh my gosh, look at that.
Right.
So a lot of sewing machine manufacturers would introduce new models at World's Fairs or state centennial, anytime there's like a big deal and there's going to be a lot of people, let's get our machine and our salesman out there. Design features. I don't want to get too far into the engineering nerdery, although that is my usual rabbit hole. Okay. We're going to get back to talk about the So Handy. The So Handy was an innovation when it came to market. It was first available in several proprietary colors: marine blue, larch green, and ashes of roses. Isn't that a beautiful name for a color?
Truly. That's evocative.
Yeah. I have a picture of 3 of the green ones on my wall here. They're cute little things. They've got some gold decal work on them. Doesn't look anything like Singer's stuff, but it's pretty. By 1933, Singer had time to study the pluses and minuses of the So Handy. One of its far-sighted design features was the concept of using a single piece of metal for both the machine bed and lower housing. So Handys were totally self-contained and didn't require a separate base or cabinet to enclose all the shafts and gears and gizmos.
Mm-hmm.
The bed was made of aluminum like an inverted cake pan, and there was enough space inside for the machinery. A piece of plywood provided access for oiling and maintenance. Okay, so the self-contained thing is pretty cool. You pick it up and there's no little gears or anything.
Yeah, that's just that much less stuff. That many less things to pinch and break and lose and so on.
Yeah, and dribble grease all over. Okay. The Featherweight inherited this basic design from the So Handy. However, Singer's engineers improved it by adding a swinging bed extension to increase the sewing surface to the left of the needle. It may seem like a simple concept today, but this bed extension was a stroke of design genius for the time. It proved to be immensely valuable to sewers who pieced large sections of fabric. In addition, a thin metal cover plate was provided to the bottom of the machine for lubrication and maintenance of the lower mechanism, held by a single thumb nut. That was an improvement over the So Handy, which had remote oil holes all over the place. And it says here, direct application to the lower drive was tedious. You had to take screws off with a screwdriver, had to undo. So needless to say, oiling was mostly done through the oil holes if Venona remembered to do it. Also, oil holes clog with lint. So the author here believes that this accounts for the low survival rate of So Handys. I mean, there aren't very many around because they were abused. The design did not make maintenance easy enough for the average customer.
Oof.
When this book was first written in 1992, the author had only seen one So Handy machine in all of her teaching travels, and she bought it. It's like, I need to have this so I can look at it. A sidelight here, the So Handy machines, whether standard, Ausan, or General Electric variants, do not currently command the prestige factor or monetary value of a Singer Featherweight. Ah, you say, but the So Handy machines are scarcer, so shouldn't they be worth more? Well, the high demand just isn't there. In recent years, quilt making has come back like an avalanche, and quilters are looking for featherweights. The present demand for So Handys seem to be from a limited number of folks who collect antique sewing machines for their footprints through history. That's a cool sentence, too.
Yeah. This author has a way with words.
Yeah, she does. For a book about sewing machine history, it's kind of a good read. Okay, now we're going to talk about, I'm skipping around here because it is interesting to note that the Featherweight wasn't Singer's first sewing machine that made extensive use of aluminum. Okay, 1933. What was an aluminum machine before the Featherweight? Remember our good old electric buddy, the 101?
Yeah.
They had made a few of those. Here's a Singer brochure dated 1925, the Singer 101, which was cast iron, but they tried a model 101-10, but that still only got the weight down to 31 pounds.
Making it out of aluminum instead.
Instead of cast iron, which was 45 or something. So Singer did have some experiment with working with aluminum. Okay, so their first experiment with aluminum machines, the 101, they got it down to 31 pounds. The Featherweight weighs 12.
Wow, that's quite a bit less.
We're talking really getting into portable now. Okay. The rotary hook design, remember we've got a full rotary here, that because it's not boinging around the table. The rotary hook makes 2 revolutions per stitch. Featherweights were often demonstrated to prospective buyers by setting the little green attachment box on its side, the little square green attachment box, about the size of a pack of cigarettes, right? And set the machine on top of it and run it full speed to show how little vibration there was.
Oh, wow.
Dude, I want to try that. So you can just picture people seeing this little thing at the World's Fair going, dude. Okay, now she goes into a lot more minutiae about colors. If you're really interested in featherweights, you should get this book because it has every little detail about the tan ones were made in Scotland only for these years, and then they changed the sprue over to this color.
That is a fantastic level of nerdery.
Yes, yes. We'll have a show note for where you can buy this book. You can buy it at pretty much any quilt shop. It's just super popular. When was the featherweight discontinued? Remember, we started it in 1933. The featherweight fell to an unfortunate combination of increasing production costs and falling consumer demand. Considering that manufacturers are in business to make a profit, the increases in cost to produce a product must be offset, and it is the same with sewing machines. The featherweight had become an expensive machine to produce. It was designed in the 1930s with the labor-intensive manufacturing technology of that era. By the 1960s, it was competing with less expensive machines that were built using more modern automated technology.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the featherweight just didn't offer what most sewing machine buyers were looking for in the 1950s and 60s. This is critical here. By the start of the 50s, American women were ready for zigzag machines. 2 companies started to import them by the late 40s. Zigzag machines became extremely popular, changing women's fashions and the sewing practices of most all home seamstresses. Imported zigzags were priced about the same as U.S.-made straight-stitch machines. These new wave machines created a rebirth of home sewing. So the episode we just did a little while ago about the swing needle machines, about how in the 50s Singer brought out the 206, 306, and 319 to try to compete with the European zigzags, but they were kind of a little too late there.
Yeah, what I'm thinking too is what you were talking about with the electricity episodes and the styling of that period was how much there was like this break with the old and this, reaching towards the new and like
Mm-hmm.
even getting to the point of like, we got to get away from that beautiful swoopy black design. We got to have a much more like that train engine design, right? Of like the 301 series. And I'm thinking if the featherweight was really associated with the Depression, then yeah, by the time you get to the 50s, you really want to get away from that tiny little machine of deprivation and making do and scrimping and all that. You want a big, expansive, multi-stitch, new, completely different. The world is different. We're in a new era of prosperity. Like there's so many layers to that transition.
Yes, we've just come through this horrible war, and now it's like the rebuilding after the war was like, okay.
Yeah, but things are better now. The featherweight was associated with we can make do with less. Now it's the
Right,
50s. We want to do more, more, more.
right. So Singer tried. This is when they brought out the white featherweight and the little tan one. Here's from a Singer salesman. He related how he started working for the company in 1967 and he could barely give a black 221 away. The new white one was selling for $129.95, but you couldn't sell a black one for $60.
Consumers are so silly, I swear.
And here's the thing. The black ones are superior. The white ones have a belt drive inside. Inside
Yeah.
hooking, it's not all the gears and stuff. They've been steadily dumbing down the machine. First, the beautiful scrolled faceplate things were replaced. First, they went from the beautiful flowered embossed nose plate to the striped one, which is called striated, and then to just a pressed painted one. So they were just continually stripping off cool things and cheapening parts of the machine and changing out all those gears for belts inside. Yeah, the white ones are cute, but they're noisier. They're not as well made.
Right. And also because this is, again, across decades of that corner cutting that leads
Yeah.
to ultimately the fast fashion machines that we have now. Right? Like we've talked about repeatedly, like from the 30s to the 60s is quite a significant period of that downward slope.
Oh gosh, so much stuff happened in there, and I hadn't thought about that, but you're right in that the styling reminded people of old hard times. We want new modern stuff. I want pink and lemon and chrome and mint green and lots of knobs and dials. I want it to look like my Buick.
Yeah.
I want it to look modern, you know? And one of my favorite things to harp on is how sewing machine design and car design really kind of followed each other. So yeah, here's some pictures of the nose end of the featherweight over the years, where it started with the Egyptian scroll work, and then just the straight chrome, and then just the pressed painted piece, and also how here's the stitch length levers, just the stitch length thing, like the little metal deal that sticks out. By the end of the featherweight thing, that was plastic. It's like they're just little chipping away. So the last featherweights were made in Great Britain in 1967. That's 4 years that this little machine was made in some form or another. That's pretty cool. The only thing I can think of that lasted anywhere near that long was the 201, and they were pretty much right around in the same zone.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk more about the featherweight. Now you kind of know what it is. It's a little tiny machine. Why do you want it? You're a quilter. Your mom wants one. If you're listening to this podcast, you already know what it is. You probably have several of them hiding in your house. Your partner doesn't know that. Back in the 80s, I could still find featherweights at Goodwill for $15. You just go in the back where all the broken up appliances and shit are and look for the little black box with the handle on top. Looks like an old carrying case for record albums, if you remember what those are. And you open that case, and probably the smell is going to kill you. That's a notorious thing about featherweights is the boxes were put together with hide glue, HIDE, hide,
Oh.
boiled animal glue, basically. And when that sets for a
Yeah.
long time in a wet environment, it becomes biologically active and it smells dead. You can look online and find everybody's little favorite remedy for getting rid of that. Myself, when I finally found a featherweight that I wanted to keep, I just tore all that covering off the wooden box, sanded and oiled the box, and called it good. Because it's the glue that holds the covering on that makes the stink. Or you can buy a brand new case for the darn things. Here's the thing, featherweights are such a popular little machine still. All the parts are available still. And they're going to cost you money, but I can't think of any other sewing machine that has a cult following. And it really is a cult following. There are people. Okay, let's talk custom featherweights here. There's the little black ones, there's the white ones, there's the tan ones, and then there's the customized ones, which started off with people just repainting the old black ones, and then somebody started making the little decals, the little golden decals, so you could redecal it and make it look all normal. And then there's people that are like, wait, I want a pink one. So it started being a thing to have these customized painted featherweights, and there are so many just art pieces. Sometimes they're made by, she's a quilter, he makes custom motorcycles, so he knows how to do all this tricky painting and paint. There's people like me who sand it down, give it a good paint job, color good, it's functional, it's prettier than it was. And then there's other people that turn out these works of art. It's like, do I even want to sew on that? I mean, they've got like airbrushed pictures on them and engravings, and it's like, do you sew with that? A lot of people, believe it or not, don't. They just collect the machine. I've seen a picture. There's a picture in this book of somebody who's got like 50 of them, and they're painted in like a rainbow of colors, and they have them all lined up by color. This is a cult. This is not a sewing machine.
That's an intense fandom. I'm going to call that an intense fandom.
How does it sew? Does it actually sew that good? Well, First of all, I have passed through my little grubby fingers so many featherweights that I could probably take it apart in my sleep and put it back together with one light bulb. I mean, I know featherweights really well. However, I've never been able to keep one because they're worth so much money. I was buying them for $15, cleaning up the case, cleaning up the machine, make sure it sews good, and selling them for $250, $300. This is in the mid 1980s.
Wow.
Now you're lucky if you can buy a machine in the condition that I fix it up for $500, $600, $700.
Wow.
The ultra painted up, super spiffy ones are going for $6,000 and up.
Okay.
And there is a waiting list to get your machine painted by the masters. People like W.K. Binger, and there's many more. Dave's Desk is another guy. And this is on both sides. Actually, Australia too. Australia, UK, and the USA are mad for featherweights. And it used to be, if you lost your bobbin case, you were screwed. There aren't anymore. But since the little guys are so popular, there has sprung up cottage industries of people making all the repro parts, even motors. So it used to be also that if the motor died, you're screwed because the little featherweight motor is unique to that machine. Another one won't work. But all this stuff is available now. There is a store that I do business with. It's just called the Featherweight Shop, and it's in Idaho. It's run by one family. Their whole store is just featherweight stuff. Just featherweight stuff. And it's amazing. It's like, okay, but how do they sew? You keep sidestepping this, GR. Do they actually sew good, or are they just cute? Well, I forgot. All the featherweights I've had to sell them. I've had to sell them all because they're worth a lot of money, and that was as a bass player. I'm a bass player in a country western band. I need to sell featherweights to like keep my cats in food and stuff. But a couple years ago, well, things have changed, and poof, a friend of mine online says, "Hey, TR, I have this little sewing machine. You want it?" She's not a sewing machine person. She's a deadhead. I know her from the fair. I said, "What kind of a little sewing machine?" "Oh, it's in a little black box." My heart goes pity-pat. It's been down in my basement for 30 years. I don't think it works. Not a problem. So I drive down to her house, and I trade her some wonderful Oregon homegrown zucchini for this machine, and bring it home, and it has the smell. Hey. And a few missing parts, but it was in great shape and for free. Oh, my Lord. Cleaned it up. It had really bad, what we call bed cancer or aluminum rot. Since the featherweight is aluminum, it doesn't rust, but the aluminum starts to powder and decompose and get weird.
Huh.
So you have to like scrape it all off, wash it with vinegar, repaint it. So no matter how much I work on this machine, it's not going to be smooth again. It's just not. So right away, it's got a name. Because that's another thing. Featherweight people name their machines.
Okay.
And they know when their birthdays are. This is getting deep.
Rabid fans.
No matter how much I scrape and scrap at it, I'm not going to take it all the way down to bare aluminum. No way. I get it really good. I say, I christen thee Tommy Lee Jones. If you know the actor Tommy Lee Jones, he's got rough, pitted skin, but he's handsome and charismatic. So, okay, my machine's called Tommy Lee, and I paint him mint green, Rust-Oleum Modern Mint. Ah, beautiful. I didn't put the whole decal set back on, but I did put the Singer name on the little light, and he looks great. Does it sew, TR? It's pretty. It's cute. You took off all the nasty black fabric and put new beautiful fabric inside and this and that and the other. But does it sew? Well, of course it does. I learned my lesson with does it sew? I put all the work into it.
Yeah. We heard about that.
The dead featherweight story.
Mm-hmm.
That one actually came after this one. But this one, I had actually plugged it in and sewed on it first. But the featherweight is not a fast machine. This is important because some people want to go fast and some people are terrified to go fast and some people are doing very precise stuff where not going fast is a good thing. So the featherweight is not a fast machine. The motor's not super powerful, but this is a little machine. This is not meant to be your full-size cabinet guy. Okay, so it's not fast, but it's a full rotary. Now, in our episode about the 301, we talked about this rotary hook. This is the featherweight and the 301 share this hook, and it's super precise. It's one of the machines that, yes, that old thing about hold your threads before you start is really, really important with these. Otherwise, you'll get a thread jam on the first stitch. So hold the threads. Some machines don't care as much. The Featherweight does. Hold the threads. The sound of it. Oh, it's so precise. Some people don't like the sound of the Featherweight because it has that aluminum upside down cake pan bed, and it sounds a little hollow.
Sure, a little tinny and ringy compared to a regular sewing machine.
Yeah, and I find that kind of impacts my enjoyment of the machine. So inside, I put a whole bunch of sound dampening stuff on the inside. I took off the bottom, and it's just like, what is it? It's a stick on foam stuff on the inside. It helped a little, but putting it on a mouse pad thickness kind of a mat thing helps too. But really, the best thing is to put on headphones and listen to a podcast like this one.
That was going to be my suggestion. It's like, well, noise canceling headphones are great with high tinny sounds. So,
The Featherweight, let's see, the light is built onto the front of the arm, just like the 201, and it really does light up the sewing area quite well. But if you haven't switched to an LED, you will burn yourself when you go to pick the machine up. So change it to an LED. The little Featherweight store has those. I'm going to put a link to those guys. There's a lot of good stores that focus on quilting. And if you go into any quilt store and ask about Featherweight stuff, they might even have a rack of bobbins and all the stuff that you need. Doing business with somebody who's just all about Featherweights, I mean, I lost one of the tiny little screws. Yes, don't lose the little screws. Don't work on sewing machines on a deck that you can't get underneath. Because the screws will go down. I like to work on machines outside. Anyway, I lost this tiny little screw. And I went on their website. Yes, they have it. It's $6. But they have it. They have it. Yes. So it sews great. It makes the most perfect little stitch. It's an adorable thing to sew on. My favorite thing to do with my Featherweight, me and Tommy Lee, we like to go out to the park and set up on a picnic table with our little power pack. I talked about in people-powered machines, the little Jackery Explorer power pack. Me and Tommy Lee, we can go out there and work on quilt blocks in the middle of the city with pigeons, people going by. And sitting there with this little miniature green sewing machine, everybody wants to know, what are you doing?
I'm sure they do. Yeah. I can't imagine you get much quilting done, what with all the passersby needing an introduction.
Oh, I need to take a stack of business cards.
Yeah.
So my vintage repair cards. Like, yeah, man, you got one? You want to? Because that's what people do. Oh, my mom's got one of those. I think it's in the closet. Does she still need it? Does she want to sell it? I'll give you $20. No. Okay, small machine, small people, children. Children are fascinated with the Featherweight because it's their size.
That makes sense, yeah.
W.K. Binger, the guy who runs the awesome vintage sewing machine center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, has a special spot in his heart for kids and Featherweights. I mean, he gives sewing lessons. He gives these group sewing. He's just an amazing guy. I want to do a whole nother episode just on him. He's on the spectrum like us, so his depth of fascination is wonderful. But he's one of the guys who paints the really one of a kind, amazing art Featherweights, and then he gives them to these kids.
Aww.
After they've demonstrated, yeah, they want to sew, and his whole page is like pictures of kids sewing and making stuff. It's just, I really want to go there. I think when we go back when we go on the road trip for Grandma's funeral next May, I really want to take a detour to Tulsa. It's not that far from Omaha, right?
I mean, it's over there in the middle of the country. It's not on the west coast, best coast. So, yeah.
Another cool thing, the Tulsa has the Greenwood Rising museum about the race riots. I want to go see that, and I want to go see W.K. Binger's they just call it the museum. And people come from all over the world.
Yeah.
He's really got something going. He needs more help. But anyway, he loves Featherweights. He paints them well. He passes them on. That's the thing. They're hard to kill, okay? go back and listen to the Dead Featherweight episode, it had been dropped. Okay. Also, being a cast iron machine, if you drop it, it'll crack. An aluminum one will bend just enough that it doesn't work right.
Either way, it's fatal. That actually totals the machine.
Yeah. But people like Mike at Stagecoach Road Sewing, he loves featherweights. He does beautiful custom painting too. He's done several pink ones, and they just get snapped right up. Something about a pink featherweight. Pink and mint green are the best.
Yeah, that Easter pastel palette on a featherweight or on any sewing machine is just like the
Yeah.
incongruousness of pastel on a metal object, but then also
Yeah.
the delicate color with the delicate precision of sewing is, I don't know. I can see the appeal. I can see it.
It totally fits. One of my favorite featherweight customs that I've seen is a really super pale pink, and it just got wonderful floral decals on it. Sometimes people really, in my taste, go overboard with the decals, and it's just like, oh my God, I couldn't sew on that. It's just distracting. But some well placed little decals are kind of fun. It's, oh, this is so cute. And I'm sewing this cute little fabric on this cute little machine. I need another cute little glass of wine. Quilt retreats. Let's talk about quilt retreats. Speaking of wine, I myself have not actually been to one, but I'm shy. I want to go to a quilt. A quilt retreat it's a cultural phenomenon. I think I'm just going to have to go before I even talk about it. But what my impression of it is, it's a sleepover for 50-year-old women who like to sew and have lots of, like, usually like they'll rent out a place and there'll be catered dinner and already be irons and cutting tables. You just bring your machine and everybody sets up their table with all their little decor.
Wow.
You got your pink featherweight, you've got your pink flowers and your pink teddy bears, and a lot of these are like, this is trippy. I want to go. I want to check it out.
Wow, that does sound like a cultural phenomenon.
Oh, and it's an underground thing. They have what's called shop hops. Now, I'm sure there's some listeners out there laughing at me like, oh, you've just heard of this? Ha ha, you're so cute. Shop hops, where people get together in a bus and drink wine and go to all these different quilt shops.
All fandoms have some things in common, and that is that they are silly when they get together in large groups. I love it.
So the featherweight community and the quilt community are a big overlap. Not everybody who's into featherweights is a quilter, and not all quilters are into featherweights. In fact, some quilters make it a point to say, I don't have a featherweight, I have a Bernina, or whatever their favorite thing is. My favorite machine right now, of all the ones I have, 15 machines, I got a featherweight, and it's a great featherweight. There's nothing wrong with it. It's cool. It's great here in the RV, but I really do prefer the 301. And I'm finding a lot of quilters do. It's faster. It's got more space under the thing. You can drop the feed, and it's every bit the precise stitcher as the featherweight. So you go to a quilt retreat, you'll see a lot of featherweights. You'll see some 301s. You'll probably see some modern machines. But it's amazing to me how women can get as partisan about their sewing machine brand as guys in their trucks.
People are people. We like our fandoms, and we like to have the better one on any given binary. We like to say we've got the good one, and neener.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I can't wait. Speaking about being shy and trying to go to social functions, going to something, I know you know this because you go to fandom things where everybody's into the thing and you all know.
Right, yeah.
But here tomorrow there's a thing here in Christmas Valley called the High Desert Stitch Rippers Club, and you're supposed to just bring all your crafty stuff and hang out in the Grange Hall, and wow, I want to do that, but oh God, I don't know anybody. Oh, what machine should I take? I know I talked about this before, but I've been obsessing about it. If I go, what machine should I take? I don't have the featherweight with me. I have the 301. I have my Elna Supermatic, which would also be acceptably weird.
I just love the idea of all this like body doubling parallel play gathering for this crafting stuff. I'm just like, this is just so neuro-affirming of an activity.
It really is.
I love it. I love it so much.
Now, between where you are and where I am physically is a little town called Sisters, Oregon, and they have one of the most famous quilt weekends in the country. But it's always the same weekend as the country fair.
That's a problem.
I'm part of that. I can't, 22 some years now, I'm embedded. But the Sisters quilt show, the whole town is a quilt retreat. They hang quilts out. They spend like a week hanging quilts out in businesses and stuff. And there's like all kinds of awards and workshops and she's like, man, how can I go to this? Maybe next year. Maybe next year I'll just take a year off the fair and go to this because it's so close. And even if you
Yeah.
go to Sisters, like that's part of the whole town's identity is that they're into quilting. It's a small town, 3,000 people, and they have like several quilt shops. It's like, whoa.
Wow.
Eugene only has none now. I think they're all out of business.
Yeah, I need you to teach me how to quilt because I just yesterday finished the last of my new jigsaw puzzles, and now my layout table where I was doing puzzles is bare, and I don't have anything to do there. I need you to come teach me how to start quilting.
You're gonna love quilting. Quilting is such a, oh my god, it's huge. I mean, it's bigger than fishing, really. It doesn't get as much press, but it's quilting is this amazing underground history, women's history. Damn it, all races, creeds, colors, cultures. Quilting is like important, and there's so many people out there that know way more about it than me. But yes, I will teach you what I know. And since you're getting the Davis vertical feed treadle,
Yes.
that's going to make putting your quilt sandwich together a lot easier. That's the batting, the backing, and the top. The fun part, there are so many people who get their featherweight out and they just love sewing little pieces together, and they've got so many quilt tops, but they never get around to making the finished unit, with batting and everything. So it's easiest to start out with small quilt. Don't say, I'm going to make a quilt for my bed right off the top. Do stuff like pot holders, so you get the sense of how things go together. And I'll even let you use my feather.
We're going to have to do a whole episode on quilting. Maybe once I start to learn a little bit about it tactilely, then we can do a big old deep dive episode on what quilting is all about. Once I'm a true quilting novice and not just aspiring to novice status.
Yeah, because since it is such a big hobby, and some people will say, well, I can't quilt. I don't have a featherweight yet. Well, dude, you don't need a featherweight. Laura Ingalls Wilder quilted by hand, for Pete's sake. She hated it. Laura hated sewing. Mary liked sewing. Ma hated sewing. I don't know about Carrie. Carrie became a newspaper She became a podcaster. She became a newspaper owner in South Dakota, I think.
So that actually reminds me. I was thinking earlier when you were like, I don't know why featherweights are so associated with, or why they're so popular. And I was thinking, I wonder if it was just like one or two really influential people that just, influencers before the internet. Like, I wonder if it was just like a couple of people were like, I really like this machine. And then they were, patient zero for an infection, basically.
I don't think that happened. I think what happened was Singer's marketing department was just so, we were saying like taking trucks out into the country and stuff. I think it was just probably, though, what you're saying is if one person in the town gets one, then everybody wants one.
I mean, if that person is popular and well connected, right?
Well, it'll probably be like, the preacher's wife or something.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Because she has to travel as he gets assigned to different churches. So there might be one. And the whole thing, like we've talked about several episodes, women getting together to sew. It's just a thing, even with machines, which is another reason why something small and light like the featherweight would be so popular. Because you really can just throw it in the back of the car or even on a bicycle. I've carried mine around on a bicycle and go over to your friend's house and sew. It's easy. There's a little travel iron. You see them in thrift stores. Hand folds down and it'll fit in the top tray of the featherweight. So then you've got your whole sewing room right there.
So cool.
Makes me want to sew.
Yeah.
I'm threaded, folks. Are you threaded? Is your tension balanced? Then thank you for being here and sharing your sewing space with us right now. I hope that you don't poke yourself with a pin, nick yourself with scissors, or burn yourself with the iron. Stay threaded.
And there you have it. A deep dive into the rise and fall and rebirth of one of the most well-known sewing machines of all time. We read from The Perfect Portable and Its Stitches Across Time by Nancy Johnson Strabo, discussing the Singer Featherweight from the time it was the Standard Sewing Machine Company's sew handy design, through the Depression era when portable machines were in high demand, past the zigzag that pushed it out of production, and into the present day where collection enthusiasts pay thousands of dollars for custom paint jobs. I really enjoyed this episode. It had a little bit of all three of our podcast pillars in it, but it was focused on the history of how the machine fit into our society, which is perhaps my favorite part of our Venn diagram. One thing I didn't mention during the recording is that I am familiar with that nasty smell from old featherweight cases, but not from that hobby. I used to work in a university library when I was a student at said university, and we had books and documents going back well over 100 years stored there, which meant that many of them had a weird, gross smell and this nasty, crumbling, binding dust that was, of course, hide glue as well. It was a very popular adhesive in the early 20th century. Obviously, books don't get wet like a sewing machine case in an unheated basement would, but still, biological products breaking down rarely smell good. But back to the topic of sewing machines. I don't know if I am as entranced with the idea of having a featherweight as I have been with some of the other machines that Mom has told me about on this show, but I do know that I really, 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 really want to learn how to quilt. So stay tuned for a quilting episode to come out someday, perhaps in the late summer or early fall. Do make sure to check out the show notes for this episode, found in the episode description. TR did send me a lot of links to include. I'm pretty sure that we're doing another history episode next week, but I don't actually remember what we discussed, and I can't find the note that I wrote to remind myself about it. Oh well, we'll see you back here anyway. As a reminder, we are unofficially sponsored by Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine, who do repairs and restorations. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can support us by sharing the podcast with your friends and also with money at patreon.com/used2sew. Thank you for listening to us here at Used to Sew. We always welcome your additions, corrections, and feedback in general. Please reach out to us via email at usedtosew@gmail.com. Used to Sew is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.